you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me. I came across your videos quite early on in my Afrikaans learning, and they've been really helpful, especially your videos on the long and short vowel sounds. They've been brilliant, and on making the sound with the I and the G and the R as well. So I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to make them and putting them out there, and they are very much appreciated and really, really useful. So that's all right. So you're a qualified teacher. We have a diploma in foreign language teaching, and is it the TESOL and the TEFL certificates? So what made you decide to do the Afrikaans YouTube videos?
Okay, wow, that's a big question. Basically, do you want the long answer or the short answer?
The long's fine, whichever you prefer.
Okay, language. Let's start with language and learning languages. Myself, I have always had an interest in culture and people, and has been on the receiving end of entering a culture and having no idea what's going on. You're like an idiot, you're just like a little baby in, what's happening around you, and relying on people to teach you, not necessarily linguists or trained people, but just the lady standing on the other side of the shop, window, and you're trying to explain, and they're like pointing, and so that's quite exciting for me. And also, it's a long story, but I'm in love with Afrikaans, my language, like most people would be in love with their own languages. But I think what happened also growing up in South Africa in the time that I did, there came a point where you could actually offend someone just speaking of Afrikaans, because Afrikaans became this power thing and this thing that had to be done with, and my generation went from having everything in Afrikaans and not even thinking about it, to everybody questioning their own languages and should we now be speaking this and what. And I mean, I went through the same, and as an artist I've always been writing in Afrikaans and dreaming in Afrikaans and living in Afrikaans. And also, and I, went through my own rhetoric and decided that I was going to stick with this language. Even if whatever happens, I'm sticking with it. And I also, some of my friends went through that, artist friends, which then start performing in English. And eventually they came back to Afrikaans. And Afrikaans went from a language that was very much controlled by government in a way, to a very free language where we have now festivals. I mean, you can go on a festival every freaking weekend if you want to. You can go to every little town has got their own little Afrikaans festival, and it's a language that now is free. And also, I think what made it relevant to start teaching Afrikaans as a foreign language is also that after what happened in our country, South Africans just went everywhere. I mean, I went everywhere. Everyone went everywhere. I don't have friends. That's not basically, I have a friend for a while and it's, you're going to Australia, really? You're going to England, and this one's in that country. And, it's like, because we were the first generation to have the right to go, no one else could go. And so it was on our shoulders to go see the world, So I went to see the world. I came back. But anyway, so, you get questioned about your language a lot. Me and my friends traveled through Cambodia. Now, we were obviously the only two Afrikaans-speaking people on earth, in that area. And we were like our own secret language. We would discuss things and like, no, we want to pay $5. And, and we will discuss and people will be staring. And it was like this big secret, But anyway, and then also the hurtful things that people would say, especially in London when I was living there, and I would maybe meet someone from Australia or Australia, Kiwi, people from America, and would like, sorry, isn't Afrikaans a dying language? And I'm like, what? And I was like, what? It's like a stab through your heart. And I'm like, and I made this very foolish decision, and I said, well, if it depended on me, no, it won't be a dying language. I will not let this out. So obviously it might die, but it definitely, and then I came to a phase in my life where I really got hope for Afrikaans, just in general. I mean, I'll get to TEFL, but now just reading about it and learning that, I mean, the whole Namibia speaks freaking Afrikaans, and they don't really care about all this politics in South Africa. And one of my friends, he's a Namibian, and he's like, why don't you love your language? This is an awesome language. What's your problem? And I mean, we've been so under attack as a language as well. And, and then I started dating an American, which I then demanded have to speak Afrikaans like tomorrow because it's a language of my heart. I love in Afrikaans, so sorry. And he actually started getting the tapes and the stuff, and he was terrible. I mean, the way that he spoke, I just, it was like, where do you get the sounds? And then it made me really start thinking about the way we write our language and the actual way that we speak it is from, if you grow up in Afrikaans, you think it's the same, but it's actually very, very different. And there's a whole lot of sounds that we make that's actually not written down there. And I think it makes it quite difficult for someone from outside just trying to read and thinking that they might be saying it right, and in fact they're sounding really bad if an actual Afrikaans person will be listening to them. At that stage, I started doing the TEFL course just as an extension on my international travel opportunities, and just knowing I might one day need something like that. And I did a full diploma, which was a 5-week thing. And then it like started thinking to myself, I want to teach people Afrikaans as a foreign language. And I've always been thinking about that. And at that stage, YouTube wasn't that big yet. I don't even know if YouTube existed. It probably did, but it wasn't that a big thing. You couldn't just have your own channel or your own TV or whatever. And now things have changed so much. And eventually I got the first stuff together for the first videos after my daughter's birth, always just wanting to do this.
Yeah.
And so I'm almost at 800 subscribers now. And it's like, how's that for a dying language? So I was like, but I'm amazed at the type of people that's learning Afrikaans and the reasons for learning it. And people from all walks of life, Did I answer anything?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having coffee.
Do you find that they're from all over the world, not just from inside South Africa or not just from Australia?
Yeah.
They're very spread out.
Very, and very different reasons. I know one of your questions was about reasons. Is this the reason? Okay, reason. First paying customer, reason was he was a language freak and he needed to learn Afrikaans as part of his repertoire of languages. But he could already speak so many languages. A lot of my students are actually some of my students are better linguists than I would, and they already at 5 languages, and I'm like, I feel like 3.5, maybe 2.5, I'm like sort of a mixed thing there, plus the 2 languages that I do speak. And so I also learned from them on the linguistic side. So other reasons, one person has friends, just friends, that's Afrikaans, that's living in a society where they live in Australia. Other reasons is love. Love is a big reason. People being married to or having a sister or somebody, then entering, sister-in-law, somebody entering a family, and then having to visit these Afrikaans families, I think, and not knowing what to do. I've heard a Scottish man speak Afrikaans like you wouldn't believe to his father-in-law, like having a beer at the braai, doing the thing, and he did all of that for the girl. Even learned how to do the braai and the fire, and so Afrikaans ladies somehow get meant to speak Afrikaans. Yeah.